In this training session, we're going to take a look at event log thresholds again. But this time we're going to look at a very specific scenario, and that is collector side thresholds that are grouped by an event property. We have the threat detection package here. It's not assigned by default, so it's grayed out. And inside there we have the malware spreading filter, and we're going to use this filter for example. I'm going to enable it, and we're already on the threshold tab here. And we'll notice that the filter is set, the threshold is set for collector side. And the purpose of this setting here is essentially to detect if the same process is launching on multiple computers within a certain time period. So in this particular configuration, if the same process is being launched on more than 10 computers within 30 seconds, then we will see an alert in the event log. Nothing is actually being sent out, but we're going to see events in the event log when this happens. So how does this work? First off, this filter works by looking at the 4688 event, which is logged by Windows whenever a new process is being started. So there's nothing special about that. So we're just looking at any time a new process starts, that filter is going to run. Then that filter is going to look at a very specific event property, the insertion string number 6, which is the new process name. So that's the process that's being launched, process name. So that's being extracted, and that will be the dynamic text that's going to be used for these threshold objects. But there's something else going on here in this filter. And you can see here we have a section called collector side. And by default, this group by setting here is set to none. But here it's set to computer. So what does that mean? So this is actually, again, best illustrated with this little diagram here. So when we have a collector side threshold that's grouped by, for example, computer, and that's the most common one that you're going to want to use, every time an event is being processed, the insertion string is being extracted. And in this case, and just like shown here, it will be the process name. For example, mmc.exe, cmd.exe, whatever is being launched. And when that happens, the filter will also extract the computer name, because that's what's being configured in the group by settings. Remember, that was set to computer. And those computer names are going to be associated with those threshold objects associated with that process. So if we launch mmc.exe on sender 1, a new threshold object will be created for mmc, and sender 1 will be associated with that. If MSC is then launched again, as it's shown here, well, then there'll be 2 instances, but it's really irrelevant how many times we launch it on any given computer, because all we care about is on how many different computers that process is being run. So when a cmd.exe launches on sender 2, well, a new threshold object is being created. It's only going to be valid for 30 seconds in memory, then it's going to be discarded. And then sender 2 is going to get associated with that, and then let's say it runs on sender 12. Those are all computer names, fictive computer names. Then we'll have 2 computer objects associated with it. And what we're actually counting towards the thresholds is not how many times it's run on any given computer, but on how many different computers it's going to be run. And you can see that, for example, here, ps-exec svc.exe is being launched on all these different servers within the 30 seconds, 5, and that's what the threshold applies to. So in this case, we could say, okay, if it launches on 5 or more computers, that's when we want to trigger the threshold. So that's how that group by feature works. So it still works similar to how it works without the group by feature, that when we use an insertion string, we get different threshold objects. But instead of counting the actual occurrence, because without the group by feature, what we would be counting would be the number of instances that this insertion string is being encountered. Okay, so in this case, it would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we would have the number 8 would be the counter for a regular threshold that's not grouped by computer. But because we're saying we don't care about the number of instances, we only care about what it's grouped by, then that's what actually counts towards the threshold. And that's how that group by feature works. And we have a couple of other filters that work similarly. So for example, here we have a filter that detects the same thing, but not processes launching on multiple servers, but the same user logging on to multiple machines within a certain time period. So here we're looking at a 4624 event, which is a successful logon. We're only looking at logon type 10, which is an RDP logon, hence the name RDP. And we're excluding certain logon grids. And here we're saying, okay, we're extracting the SID of the user, insertion string number 5. Again, we're grouping by computer just like before. And if there's more than 4 logons, or if there's 4 logons within 5 minutes, then that threshold is going to get triggered. And the same thing here. It's pretty much identical to the other one, except that now we're looking at the logon type 2, which is a console logon. But otherwise, pretty much the same thing. So if somebody logs on to multiple workstations, for example, within 5 minutes, the same user, again, we're looking at the SID, then a threshold will be met.